as we understand, the government approach by way of the military response, some may say you are militarizing the situation, but they are looking at, law and order in a situation where there is some chaos. Is it your suggestion that the state must tone down on that? Because you need to keep law and order before you can pursue peace. Yes, please, unmute your microphone.
Sorry, please. To the contrary, I think my understanding is that it is the government that is seeming or appearing to, focus too much on the approach of security forces. And I've tried to argue that security forces are not going to be able to solve the root causes. Maybe they can put a damper on the triggers, as my colleague has suggested. And we cannot also permanently resolve the issues if we don't address the root causes. So we're in a very dicey situation. What we need at this moment is that we need a climate where all the parties can begin to talk. And my understanding will be that we should not impose any solutions on the people. The role that everybody else must play, the government, parliament, for instance, religious bodies like the Catholic Bishops' Conference, and so on, is to facilitate dialogue between these groups. And so far,
as we speak, because you mentioned the Catholic Bishop Conference and other religious bodies, as we speak, the religious organizations have had occasion to contemplate even removing their personnel who are in charge of hospital, health facility that is, very useful to the people. Even religious organization is thinking about removing, the hospital, or, well, if you remove the personnel, there's no hospital.
That's right.
There are banks and other installations that have moved to Boga. I have many friends from Bawku from our days in, Navasco, who would prefer to be in Boga than be in Bawku.
That's right. So we cannot do without the security forces, in the first instance, creating those conditions where dialogue can take place.
All right.
That is a necessity. But since the military or security forces were deployed, we don't seem, as the Catholic Bishop Conference put out, we don't seem to be aware of any constructive engagement by the government with the parties, except, let's say, the Regional Security Council or Regional Coordination Council and so on. But I've explained that these structures are all politically exposed structures. Because everybody in there is appointed by the government. And you and I know, and it is, researched, that the two main parties, Kusasis, are pro-NDC, and Mamprusis are pro-NPP. So the perception to the Kusasis will be that everything that is happening there is because of the perception that they have government of the day support. You see? So let's begin to see concrete measures. First of all, that appeal cost process that the defense minister mentioned needs to be expedited, because creating a legal basis for traditional authority in that enclave, for instance, is very helpful. If the Supreme Court says that the rightful Bawku Naba should be a Kusasi, or the rightful Bawku Naba should be a Mamprusi, that is part of the solution. We then need to dialogue the Supreme Court decision. And it can be dialogued only by the two parties, including education and so on and so on. That is not happening.
Okay.
You see,
all right.
It's not happening as if the processes must be sequential. That you deploy security forces for 6 months, And then at the end of that, you resort to another segment of the process. No, they could work in tandem.
Okay.
And that, I think, is what is not happening, which is creating the problem. So the earlier government facilitated dialogue between and among all the groups, I think the better for all of us. It is only then that we could begin, in the words of Dr. Nchudanso, to transform the conflict.
All right.
So far, the conflict is being resolved only through the use of force by the parties or by the government that has deployed these security forces, not to bring the people around the table.
All right.
And let them now find ways and means of coming to a common understanding of how they are going to coexist in that enclave.
Right. Thank
Part
you.
of the problem I've said elsewhere is that I think the English word is polyglot. In that wider Bawku area, you have Kusasis, and I've read somewhere that Kusasis are about 75% in the west, and then 45% of the population in the east. But you also have Bises, you have Bimobes, you have, what do you call them, Moshis, and then you have Mamprusis. Any geographical area on this planet where you have in a small enclave a number of different ethnic identities, you are likely to have conflict. And therefore, we cannot put this Bawku conflict in the fridge and only address the symptoms and think that, okay, that will be the end.
Okay.
If that would be the end, as you suggested, the Kusasi Conference 1931, Mamprusi Conference 32 would have resolved the issue. But the actual outcome of that was that it was a strategy for the Englishman, the colonist, to be able to find an arrangement where they can deal with a powerful king. I mean, that is what has been researched.
All right, Prof.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So to find other ways of making sure that the balance of power is in the interest or favorable to all the parties.
All right. Thank you very much.